This is LibreQuest. My name is Matt, and the date is the 1st of October 2019. You can find this podcast at LibreQuest.org. From ZDNet, Docker is in deep trouble. This article written by Stephen J. Von Nichols for Linux and Open Source. September 30th, 2019 is when this article was posted. And the title, Docker's in deep trouble. In a leaked internal memo, Docker CEO reveals the troubled company is looking for more money. Docker, the technology, is the poster child for containers, but it appears Docker, the business, is in trouble. In a leaked memo, Docker CEO Rob Bearden praised workers, despite the uncertainty, which brings with it significant challenges, and persevering in spite of the lack of clarity we've had these past few weeks. Lack of clarity about what? Sources close to the company say it's simple. Docker needs more money. Indeed, Bearden opened by saying, not openly, we have been engaging with investors to secure more financing to continue to execute on our strategy. I wanted to share a quick update on where we stand. We are currently in active negotiations with 2 investors and are working through final terms. We should be able to provide you a more complete update within the next couple of weeks. Docker has already raised $272.9 million, but the company hasn't been profitable. Its venture capitalist supporters, ME Cloud Ventures, Benchmark, Coat Management, Goldman Sachs, and Greylock Partners, which have seen it through Series E financing, can't be happy that after almost 6 years, Docker still isn't close to an IPO. While the previous CEO, Steve Singh, promised on May 2019 that Docker would be cash flow positive by the end of this fiscal year, that appears not to have been the case. Otherwise, Docker wouldn't need to seek additional capital. What happened? Actually, Docker's been in trouble for a while now, and there have been rumors that the company might be acquired. But its core problem is the same one that it's had for a while now. Docker doesn't have a viable business plan. So this is an interesting article. You can find it over on ZDNet. And again, the title is Docker's in Deep Trouble, if you want to read the rest of that article. The next article that I have here is going to be how to check laptop battery status and level in a terminal with Linux. Let's see here. This article was posted on OS Technics. That's ostechnix.com. Let's see here. This article was published on October 1st, 2018 and updated October 1st, 2019. And this article is written by, it's just 2 initials. It's SK. Finding your laptop battery status in GUI mode is easy. You can easily tell the battery level by hovering the mouse pointer over the battery indicator icon in the task/top bar. But how about from the command line? Not everyone knows this. The other day, a friend of mine asked how to check his laptop battery level from the terminal in his Ubuntu desktop. Hence this post. Here I have included 4 simple methods which will help you check laptop battery status and level in terminal on any Linux distribution. Method 1 is upower, the upower command. And there are some examples here of how the upower command works. I'm not actually going to read through that because just to make it simple, you can open a terminal after you've installed upower if your distribution doesn't ship with it, and you can type man, that's MAN space upower, and that'll give you a list of different commands that you can use with upower to get the output for your battery information. So the method number 2 is ACPI. This is actually my personal favorite, ACPI. There's given an example here. You can open your terminal and actually just type ACPI, and it should give you some good information there. The example that is used here in this article is ACPI space -V. There are other, of course, flags that you would be able to use with ACPI, and that's going to be the same with every method here that's listed. So after ACPI, we have using cat and find commands. Now, of course, using cat, you're going to have a little bit of additional information to put in there. So I'm not going to bother reading that one, honestly. I mean, it's a good method, I'm sure. But we also have BatStat, the BatStat program, and that looks like it's an incursus based CLI utility. So that's awesome because I love those. There is a Git repository which you can clone to get BatStat, and the command to run BatStat is BatStat. That's BATSTAT, and there's actually a sample output here, and it looks pretty nice. So it looks like the update from this year is going to be method 5 using battery level CLI program. That's battery-level-CLI. It says the battery level-CLI, or I'm sorry, battery-level-CLI. CLI. I'm having trouble with that. That's definitely an interesting looking program name. So is yet another command line utility to display the battery level in Linux. Unlike BatStat program, it will only display the battery level. It won't help you find whether the battery is charging or not. And it's written in Node.js, so make sure your system has Node.js installed. If Node.js is not installed, refer to the following know how to install, and then there's an instruction guide there. So this is a pretty good article if you're interested in learning how to check your battery level from the Linux terminal. And this one was posted on, and I believe I already said that, but yeah, I'll say that again. That's on ostechnix.com. That's ostechnix.com, and it's under the title, How to Check Laptop Battery Status in Terminal in Linux. Let's see. The last article that I have here is going to be posted on opensource.com. It was posted by Matthew Broberg from Red Hat, and it was posted October 1st, 2019. The monumental impact of C. This should be interesting and fun to hear about. So the season finale of Command Line Heroes offers a lesson in how a small community of open source enthusiasts can change the world. And am I missing something here in my article? I'm not sure. I'm just going to pick up where it picks up here. Podcast explores C's origin story in a way that showcases the longevity and power of its design. It's a perfect synthesis of all the languages discussed throughout the podcast's third season and this series of articles. And then it has a link to opensource.com/tags/command-line-heroes podcast. Okay, so Command Line Heroes is the podcast that it's talking about there. I wasn't quite sure. I may have dropped an image or something when I created this PDF file. So C is such a fundamental language that many of us forget how much it has changed. Technically a high-level language in the sense that it requires a compiler to be runnable. It's as close to assembly language as people like to get these days outside of specialized low-memory environments. It's also considered to be the language that made nearly all languages that came after it possible. The path to C began with failure. In the 1960s, Bell Labs in suburban New Jersey was one of the most innovative places of its time. John Gertner, author of The Idea Factory, describes the culture of the time marked by optimism and the excitement to solve tough problems, instead of monetization pressures with tight timelines. Bell Labs offered seemingly endless funding for wild ideas. It had a research and development ethos that aligns well with today's open leadership principles. The results were significant and prove that brilliance can come without the promise of VC funding or an IPO. I like this article. This is cool. The challenge back then was terminal sharing, finding a way for lots of people to access the very limited number of available computers before there was a scalable answer for that. And long before we had a shell like Bash, there was the Multics project. It was a hypothetical operating system where hundreds or even thousands of developers could share time on the same system. This was a dream of John McCarty, creator of Lisp and the term artificial intelligence, as I recently explored. And then there's a link to another article written by the same author. And it looks like I've got like some dropped out words here on this. That's okay. If you're interested in the rest of this article, it's a really good article. It's over on opensource.com. And it's the monumental impact of C. by Matthew Broberg of Red Hat. So that is fantastic. So I wanted to talk about a gentleman that I was not a listener of his, and his name was, well, everyone knew him by 5150, and his name was Donald Greer, and I've been a listener, and I'm not doing any, I'm not going to talk about any of the stuff I've talked about in the previous 2 episodes that I've done, so I thought episode 3 would be good to, I was inspired by 5150, actually. The latest episode of Linux Lugcast, at the end of the episode, they attached an HPR episode that 5150 had posted, and on the Hacker Public Radio. And if you don't know about Hacker Public Radio, it's a Hacker Public Radio. If you like to podcast, if you have something interesting to say, if you're into tech, if you're a nerdy type of person, then you can actually submit a podcast. You just pick a place on a schedule, and you can put your podcast up there, and really just get involved in the kind of the nerdy podcasting community. So I have listened to the Linux Link Tech Show since 2006, or TILTS. They're over at tllts.org, and they had mentioned that 5150 had passed away, and not in their most recent episode, but in a previous episode. And I knew about 5150 because I'm a TLLTS listener, and I have been for years, and their friends, their show is was friends with 5150. So I'd heard of him, but I wasn't a listener of his, and I had been considering starting my own podcast for about a year and a half. And when I heard that 5150 had passed away, it kind of inspired me not to put it off. Actually, just go and contribute with my own podcast. So. But in that most recent episode of the Linux Lugcast, they had attached an episode that 5150 had posted, and it was about the Kansas Linux Fest. The Kansas Linux Fest from March 22nd of 2015, and it's HPR episode 1742, and the title of that episode, posted by 5150, was How to Get Yourself on an Open Source Podcast. And apparently, as he explained in his podcast, he didn't actually record when he gave the presentation, when he gave his talk there. So it was a re-recording of that talk, and listening to him and what he had to say, it was pretty clear why he was so inspiring to so many people, and it makes me kind of sad that I missed out on that. Before he passed away, and but I think that's kind of the way it goes sometimes with really inspiring people. Sometimes that's just the way it works out, and I think the best example I could think of would be Stefan Grappelli. I didn't hear about him till 2003, and he had passed away in ~97. Well before, but incredible musician, and he did work with McCoy Tyner and Django Reinhardt and Yo-Yo Ma and many others. So it's kind of the same kind of a thing that after a person passes away, they can still inspire people. And I think that's from just listening to 5150. That's the kind of person that he was, and so. But listening to him talk about just how he got started in Linux, it made me think, that would be something really awesome that I could talk about as well. Something he had mentioned, that that his first experience with installing Linux was Mandrake 7.2. And I was like, whoa, no way. That was actually the first install of Linux that I ever did on one of my systems was Mandrake 7.2 as well. And that happened because the first time I'd ever heard of Linux was in, I think it was 1997. One of my brothers had mentioned it. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what an operating system was. But it wasn't until 2001, I guess it was, that my brother showed me this command in Linux. And when I saw it, my mind almost exploded. I thought, this is incredible. I have to learn about this. And it was the DD command. Now he described it as the data dump command, but apparently different people call that different things. I don't know what you call it. You might call it data dump. You might call it something different. But the DD command and the input file device 0, and it blew my mind that you could write zeros from the very first sector of a drive to the very last sector of a drive. And I know that's very I don't know, that's probably not like a big deal to you, but it was an awesome thing to me. And so I promptly went to Walmart, my local Walmart, and this was in Oklahoma, where I lived at the time, and I bought a fresh new box of Mandrake 7.2 off the shelf and took that sucker home and installed it right away. And I dual booted. I had Windows Millennium Edition because I had just purchased my very first brand new computer. Prior to that I had Pentiums and stuff, but they were all like secondhand, nothing brand new. I'd always had used, and it was one of those HP Pavilions. I think it had 733 megahertz on a Celeron processor and 32 megs of RAM, and had those little Polk audio speakers. And it was exciting to have like a brand new computer, and it was even more exciting to discover the things you could do with Linux with a whole new operating system on that new hardware. And I think I kept that computer for about 3 months before I sold it, and just ordered parts from Tiger Direct and and built my own, built a different computer that was way better. But that was my first experience with Linux, and I think I started distro hopping almost immediately. I went to I think it was a Staples and bought Corel Linux, and was not impressed with that. Actually, the best part of Corel Linux was that it came with a Loci Games demo, and I played the heck out of those demos. And I never ended up actually buying the full games for those, but I've actually considered trying that more recently. Actually tracking down an old copy of one of those Loci ports and trying to get that to work on a modern system, or just like maybe virtualizing an older distribution that it was meant to work with, or something along those lines. But anyway, back to my start and experience with Linux. That was in 2001 with Mandrake 7.2, and I dual booted. And actually, I didn't always dual boot. I dual booted it first, and then I moved over to virtualization, and I virtualized with VMware Workstation, Windows 98 and Windows 2000, and I did that until I think it was like Mandrake 9.2, and then I started to dual boot, and I wish I hadn't, but I did. I started to dual boot, and it wasn't until 2006 that it's the craziest thing. The thing that brought me over to Linux full time, no dual booting or anything like that, was a proprietary program that was included with the I think it was Mandriva. Yeah, it was Mandriva at that point. Like the Connectiva Mandrake thing had happened by then, I think. But it was a LinDVD, and I thought, hey, I can play I don't have to dual boot. I can play my DRM media content on Linux without any hassle. You could do the, I guess, libdvd CSS or whatever for the codec. Or there was a Fluendo, and there still is Fluendo actually. And actually, recently I wasn't able to get a DVD to play that I got for my kids, and I ended up getting a copy of the Fluendo media player just so it could play. I couldn't find any other way to get it to play other than the Fluendo player. So that's still a thing. They're still doing their thing over there. But it was Lin DVD that I was just like, in 2006, I'm just going straight to Linux all the time, and that's when I actually started looking into Linux podcasts, discovered the Linux Link Tech Show, and they were so exciting because they had links to other podcasts that you could check out. That's how I heard about the Linux Action Show when that was around, and that was a great program. I miss those shows. Those were great. But I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Just wanted to introduce, kind of give my backstory of why I'm using Linux, and kind of the reasons. And now that I'm talking about it, they sound actually kind of silly. The proprietary program and the DD command. But yeah, that's my story. That's why I'm using Linux. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think it's going to be kind of a pretty simple, straightforward episode here. So thank you for listening today. And if you want to learn more about 5150 and hear more of the content that he created, Hacker Public Radio is a great place for that. The Linux Lugcast as well. It was like everything he said was like somehow inspiring, thought-provoking, and really interesting gentleman. And it's very sad that he's passed away. So I guess my condolences to his friends and family. When I've listened to the cast of the different podcasts talk about 5150, it's you can definitely tell that he will be missed. So I think that's it for today. You can get this podcast over at LibreQuest.org. Of course, it's also over on YouTube and archive.org. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.